So good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining today's webinar, Start a Rewarding Career as a Certified Nutritional Practitioner. Today, Achēv, our organization, is in collaboration with the Institute of Holistic Nutrition, and you will be learning about their diploma program in applied holistic nutrition. And I will be talking about financial assistance to help you pay for your training. Today, we have Jason Madden here, who will be talking on regards of the topics, a special topic on holistic strategies for stress resiliency. So he will be adding to the webinar, talking about the programs offered, as well as the special topic. So I will give it over to Jason. And again, if you do have any questions, there's a Q&A located at the bottom of your screen. Please ask your questions there, and we will answer it at the end of the presentation. So go ahead, Jason.
Yeah, thanks, Shobana. It's lovely to be here, and thank you everyone for taking time out of your day to join. Shobana mentioned, my name's Jason. So I work as a program advisor and head administrator at the Institute of Holistic Nutrition, as well as I'm a graduate of the program back in 2016. And so since that time, I've been working as a nutritionist, and obviously working with the Institute. It was such a transformational experience for me that I couldn't quite leave, had to stick around. And now I kind of help students through their educational journey, as well as work with some of our faculty. And once in a while, get in the classroom and do a little bit of teaching myself. And so I'm actually going to, after talking about the diploma program, I'll share a little bit from some of the stuff that I share in our fitness and sports nutrition class, which even though it's geared towards athletes, I'm kind of gearing it today towards everybody in terms of how can we deal with stress. As I always tell the students at our institute that are interested in sports nutrition, working with an athlete is pretty much the same approach as working with somebody who is stressed out. Both are under a lot of stress and demand. And so we're going to go through some of the holistic strategies that I share with how we can help our body be a little bit more resilient, how we can be a little bit more resilient to all the stress, the stressors and factors going on in our life. But I'll start by sharing a little bit here about the program. So we just, so here in 2024, we just celebrated 28 years in July as an institute. And so we have been, operating in the field of holistic nutrition for quite some time. And the program is made of 19 courses that have been obviously constructed and renewed and added to over those 28 years to what it is now, which is the most robust and comprehensive program out there in holistic nutrition. And for those of you that are not familiar with holistic nutrition, hopefully you'll get a little bit of insight today, but if I can just kind of give it a brief summary, it is really the application of the science of the human body, the science of the human nutrition, and everything we know to be able to help people, guide people to live a healthy life, a longer life, and a life with more vitality. And we are doing that using, obviously, nutrition is our number one tool, but a whole lot of holistic principles to be able to really help people and get the body to do the miraculous things that it's capable of, which is heal. And we do that, like I said, through nutrition and holistic practices. So there's a few ways to study at IHN. We have our live online option, which is much like being in a physical classroom, but it's in an online space. And so this means that unlike today's webinar, it would be a little bit more dynamic and interactive in terms of you would be on camera, engaging with other students, engaging with an instructor, having discussions, question answer periods, and everything that you would expect in a physical classroom. And then we have our live online replay option. And so for students that are unable to attend class time, which you see there is 10 a.m. to 2 p.m., there is the unique option where if you miss class, you can log in at 6 p.m. and you can watch a replay of that day's lecture. So you'd still be in a live classroom with other students, but you'd be watching what happened earlier that day. And so you have two opportunities each day to catch class, obviously live with the instructor and then later in the evening. And it's a great option because we have students that, based on their work schedule or raising families, they may have to shift between the two. And so there might be some days where they can attend during the day and some days where they need to attend during the evening. And then we have our self-paced option, which is completely autonomous and allows students to study anytime, anywhere. And so this is for those individuals that cannot commit to a specific schedule. And, our classes run Monday through Thursday. So people that are, Saturdays and Sundays are the only days available to me that I can carve out time to study. Or, I'm only available really early in the mornings before work or before other life responsibilities. Then that would be the option for those individuals, is the self-paced. And what is a little bit, and I'll pause just a moment to talk a little bit about the self-paced, because as someone who has done some self-paced education outside of IHN, I know that sometimes that can look like just, YouTube videos or random videos kind of put together that you're watching on your own. This is really developed and structured for a self-paced student, in that it feels like you're getting one-on-one instruction from the faculty. So even though you are watching recordings, these recordings are not, recordings from a class that took place a couple years ago. This is, the instructors have sat down, they've recorded speaking to the self-paced student, and they've broke it up into lessons in the most optimal format for learning. And so it also allows us to swap in and out content as information develops. And so those students that are doing the self-paced program, although it's not real-time instruction, everything they're watching has been recorded within the last 3 to 6 months. So you're not getting any sort of outdated material, because the world of nutrition is constantly changing. There always is new developments and new perspectives and new research and things like that coming out. And so just to dive in a little bit deeper into kind of the logistics and the format. So with our daytime live instruction, it begins September and January of each year. And you can do it both full-time or part-time. And so a full-time student, it would take about a year to complete the program. As an example, a student starting in September, our classes kick off September 9th. They will run until about mid-July. So there'll be 2 weeks off over the Christmas New Year's break. There'll be a week off in March, but then you're going all the way till about mid-July, and then you'll finish all of your classes, and then there'll be some time for the practicum component of the program. As a part-time student, that same schedule, but obviously coming back for a second year. So doing it in a 2-year period. And as I mentioned, classes are Monday through Thursday. So as a full-time student, you would be in class all 4 days. As a part-time student, it would be 2 days a week. So a Monday and a Wednesday, or a Tuesday and a Thursday. And what's really, what I think is really beautiful about the learning style compared to, my university experience is, even as a full-time student, you're not juggling 4 or 5 different subjects. How we've developed the curriculum is you're only doing 2 subjects at a time. And so Monday and Wednesday is basically one course, Tuesday, Thursday is another course. They'll run for a 4 to 6 week period, and then you will move on to the next set of courses. So it really allows you to, kind of dive deep into the content, and rather than just kind of going surface level in 5 different subjects, being able to assimilate, digest, and really integrate the content that you're learning. So as I mentioned, 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. is the live classes, with the option of watching the replay in the evening if necessary, and then being able to do that full-time or part-time. And then with our self-paced, obviously, it's open 24/7, 365. So there is no specific start date. If someone wants to start the self-paced program next week, they can. And, I think it's important to also note that the schedule is one thing that determines the best learning option, And also, I think being honest with yourself of, what style in terms of like, do you need that accountability, or are you a self-driven, self-motivated person? So we provide the structure with the self-paced to give you kind of milestones and goalposts to aim for, to be able to stay on that 1-year timeline. You do have 3 years to complete the program. So in the self-paced, so obviously, life stuff comes up. And if you did need to step back for a couple months, or, there was an urgent matter to take care of and you had to kind of back off a little bit, that's okay. But we are going to provide a structure and kind of milestones to be reaching so that you're either hitting that 1-year mark or that 2-year part-time mark. And again, with the self-paced, you're actually only doing one course at a time. And so we've put the courses in the most optimal order. And so you would just be focused on one course and until you see that through to completion, and then you would get access to your next course. So, realistic expectations as a full-time student in either program, you're looking at about, 15 hours of lecture time a week. And I would say prepare for another 10 hours outside the classroom in terms of, study time, staying up to date on readings, preparing for tests and things like that. Everybody's got a little bit of a learning style, so that's kind of what I prepare people for, just so that they have realistic expectations. But you might find some weeks it takes you less time, especially if you're coming in with a bit of a background in the sciences or have a base foundation. But kind of a good kind of working thing is, okay, 15 hours I'm dedicated to, the lecture material, and then I'm spending some time outside the classroom. And then part-time, obviously that being cut in half, where, it's more like 5 to 10 hours of lecture and, maybe another 5 to 10 hours of study time. Now, I'll also just maybe give you a brief overview and summary of what this program is about. I'm talking about holistic nutrition and I'm giving you all the logistics, but those 19 courses, I'll summarize it as this. Students will start with what I call kind of the foundational fundamental courses. So things like biochemistry, human anatomy and physiology, the fundamentals of nutrition. So really understanding the science of the human body. How do we digest and metabolize food? How do things work at a cellular level? How does the immune system work? How does the digestive system work? What's the interplay between them? And so really kind of getting that foundation. And then we start to move into what I would call more of like the applied courses, where courses like nutritional pathology, symptomatology, preventative healthcare. This is when we're starting to look at the conditions that are affecting us in society today, cardiovascular disease, diabetes, autoimmune diseases, cancers, understanding what is the cascade of events that leads to that, kind of working backwards. How do we prevent this through diet and lifestyle? Or if we were working with somebody who is in that state, how do we support their body's natural ability to heal? How do we work through kind of rebalancing and treating these things? And so, in a course like nutritional symptomatology and advanced nutritional symptomatology, actually working through case studies, both textbook case studies where you might be given here's a client who's 35 years old and has type 2 diabetes. But you'll also be doing a case study on yourself, and you'll also be doing a case study on a real person, and being able to, use diagnostic tools to figure out, okay, what are the deficiencies that are leading to the symptoms, right? How do I figure that out? How do I remedy that through what are my diet interventions, right? What are my recommendations for food? And in some cases, maybe targeted supplementation. We're always using food as our first tool and bringing in things like supplementation in a very targeted, specific way in the short term to maybe accelerate that healing process or to, quickly rebalance a deficiency. And then working your way through other areas of holistic health, like doing a course in herbal medicine, understanding how we can use plants as medicine, whether that is, specific herbs and spices to make our food more medicinal, or whether that is teas and tinctures from herbs that we can use to remedy certain symptoms. doing a course in, I mentioned fitness and sports nutrition. What are the needs of an athlete or somebody who is an active lifestyle, but how do we do that in a holistic way? And then, and Ayurveda, which is very unique to this program, the only holistic nutrition program that has both a course in herbal medicine and a course in Ayurveda. And Ayurveda being the oldest nutrition science in the world from India, and learning some of the basics of, the doshas and, how we can apply some of those Ayurvedic principles. So it's kind of like East meets West, and how we can bring those two perspectives together. And then finishing the program with what I would call the professional component. So doing a couple courses in professional skills development, professional practice. So students that are wanting to open up their own business, build their own clientele, this is going to be kind of a how-to of how to do that. Students that want to make themselves marketable employees for companies that are hiring graduates, this is a how-to on how to do that. So it's everything from how to make a business plan, how to market yourself, how to use social media, what do you charge for your services, how do you identify who your ideal client is, how do you give a presentation like this, right? How do you give informative talks? So all of these kind of soft and harder business skills, so that when you're coming out of the program, you're not just coming out of the program with this newfound knowledge of holistic nutrition, but you're also coming out with the skill set of, okay, how do I make a career? And then, if that wasn't enough, you're going to be doing 100 hours of work experience practicum component. And so this is really getting hands-on in the field of holistic nutrition. We have a team that puts together, it's probably well over 100 different types of opportunities a year at this point. So we have long-standing relationships with a lot of different practitioners and companies, and we also open up new ones every year. And so this is a student choice work experience. This isn't you just being placed somewhere. This is as you go through the program and you start to discover, okay, what area of nutrition am I interested in working in? Then you can select from a variety of options. So, just a few examples. That could be obviously working with a practitioner in kind of a clinical setting where you are able to learn how to work with clients and do, protocols. That could be on the research and development side. Every year we have students that team up with one of our companies we've partnered with, CanPrev. Some of you may have taken a CanPrev supplement. It's a pretty well-known Canadian company. And they'll bring on students they'll give them a problem, and they'll basically research and formulate a new product. And then they pitch that product to the board, and sometimes that product even goes to market. So it's a really cool experience to be on kind of the research and development side. And then all kinds of things like retreat centers, educational type things. I mentioned fitness and sports. We've had students that have worked with practitioners that are working with, athletes that are preparing for the Olympics, for example. So, it sounds cliche to say, but this career path really can go in, many different directions. And there isn't really a ceiling at this point, it feels like, because I think, especially what I've witnessed in the last few years, more and more people are understanding that I need to take ownership of my health, and they're seeking out help beyond just going to their family doctor. And with that comes more demand for practitioners that can lead them through that process. And so, I know graduates who primarily, make their money from doing something like, cooking classes and teaching people how to cook and do things in the kitchen, to doing private chefing, to people working one-on-one with very complicated health histories and helping guide people back to a state of wellness or overcoming a disease state. So it's quite varied. And I think the program really gives you a great overview of all of these parts so that, you can find your unique space in it. So Shobana, maybe I'll stop there for the summary.
Sure. There are a few questions. I can read them out to you. If anyone does have any questions, please use the Q&A to ask your questions. I don't want it getting lost in the chat. First question, what is the eligibility criteria for the course? I have a postgraduate degree in packaging, science, and technology. Is this course helpful for me?
Yeah. So This program is open to everyone, really. There isn't a specific prerequisite that you need to have coming into this program. And I'll say this, our youngest student right now is 18. Our oldest student is 67. So people are coming here for a variety of reasons. Most people are coming here for a career change. Some people, it is their first post-secondary and it is their career chosen, right from the get-go. I would say that's a little bit more rare. And then some people, it's a mix of everything. They've witnessed a family member who has, struggled with health conditions and they wish they had answers to be able to help them, or they've been on their own healing journey. And then through that process, they realize, you know what? I feel like this is maybe a calling that I actually want to work in this field and I want to be able to have an impact on people and help people. And so to answer the question, yeah, in terms of admission requirements, having completed high school, is kind of the educational requirement. Outside of that, there is advanced standing. So for students that have post-secondary education in the sciences, if they're coming into this program and they've done human anatomy and biochemistry and some of those sciences at a post-secondary level, then you can apply for advanced standing where you'd be exempt from those courses. Otherwise, even if you don't have a science background, the curriculum is kind of starting at the beginning. Like our biological chemistry would be, kind of like an advanced high school chemistry. So if you don't have that science background at a post-secondary level, totally okay. We'll teach you what you need to know to be able to move on through the program.
All right, moving on to the next question. Someone's asking, they have an IT background. Would they be able to join? Yes.
Of course. Yeah. Like I said, even myself, I did this after, I had a business degree and I worked in the corporate world for 10 plus years. And, I fall into that category of, kind of through my own health journey and just things that I witnessed in my family, kind of found myself, if I'm being completely honest, doing this program 7 or 8 years ago now for my self-knowledge. I didn't even go into it expecting a career, but it quickly became evident that this was a career change once I was a couple months into the program. And so I've worked as a nutritionist, continue to help people in different ways, obviously working with the Institute. And so I see people that come from marketing backgrounds, business backgrounds, IT backgrounds, obviously other health disciplinary disciplines, like people that are, RMTs or they're registered nurses, and they're, kind of coming into this to get into something a little bit different.
And second part of that question is, what types of jobs are available?
Yeah, so great question. Kind of similar to what I was talking about with the practicum work experience. Everything that is offered as a practicum work experience is a job opportunity. And so a lot of our graduates actually, or a lot of our students will find employment through those work experiences. So for example, let's say a student was going to work in a naturopathic clinic and they start providing nutritional services and helping the naturopath in that way. If they do such a good job, a lot of times that naturopath won't want them to go and they'll hire them on to be a part of the clinic. But if I was to kind of categorize it into a few groups, probably the most popular, or our graduates find themselves in, is some form of nutritional counseling or coaching, right? So working one-on-one with people, guiding them and helping them through health problems. Now that in itself can look like working in a multidisciplinary clinic where you have a naturopath and a nutritionist and maybe acupuncturists and, chiropractor, et cetera. Or that could be, somebody decides to do that online and kind of develop their own practice and build their own clientele. So there's different ways of doing that, but that's probably one category. The food space is another huge category. So whether that's meal prep services, food chefing, cooking classes, like anything, catering, anything that's like in the food space, but kind of like the holistic version of it. And then the educational side of things. So, and when I say education, I mean, that can be, teaching at a place like IHN, but that also goes to, they're teaching, elementary school kids, gardening and nutrition things, or they're doing education at a company level. For instance, a lot of supplement companies and health food companies, they will hire our graduates to be educators. So educators both to the public and in the private. So what I mean by that is they might be going to clinics or pharmacies or practitioners and educating them on the products and how to use them, or they might be going to trade shows to the public and educating the public on, different products and things like that. And so in the kind of health food space and nutraceuticals, which is supplement space, a lot of 10, 15 years ago, they would just hire a really good, customer service person or marketing person. Now they're seeking out people with this education behind them. And so, a variety of roles, like I said, sales, running social media, marketing, education, things like that. So those are probably like three main categories. But again, I know it sounds cliche to say, but every time there's 100 different types of paths and I can't name them all. Every time I think I've seen everything, somebody comes along and kind of starts doing something a little different.
Yeah, and I just wanted to add to that because I did have a client who did take this program, graduated. She's self-employed. She has her own business called House of Shifa, and she's also a consultant working in a health food store. And she works in microbiology where she creates her own creams and everything. And she couldn't have done any of this without this course. So once she graduated and she became certified, she was able to do all of this. And I have her testimonial in my presentation, which I'll be sharing after all the questions are done.
Cool.
Well, there's many options once you finish this program.
Yeah, and just a quick note on just what you just said there, Shobana, because I think it also speaks to a lot of people get into this career too because of they're able to build a life with some flexibility, but also with multiple things. Because a lot of times people are multi-passionate and they don't want to do the same thing every day, Monday through Friday. And so even your example of doing this and doing that and doing that, and it's all under the umbrella of, holistic nutrition and helping people with their health, but kind of getting your hands in a few different things. Exactly.
Yes. Yeah. So next question, what is the difference between a nutritionist and a dietitian?
Yeah, great question. And I'll I could probably spend the whole hour on this topic, but I'll try and give you kind of the brief. And I think the easiest way for me to explain it is a dietitian is working more in kind of like a public way. And what I mean by that is same as like Health Canada in that, here's our approach to diabetes. And this is the same recommendation we're going to give to everybody. And a holistic nutritionist is working more in the private or individual, meaning that I'm not working with the condition of diabetes, I'm working with the person. And so even though I might have two clients that are type 2 diabetic, the way that they got there might be different, or the support that they need might be different. And of course, there's going to be overlap. There's going to be certain things that we know that are non-negotiables if we're treating certain conditions that we know, hey, these recommendations are kind of standard. But beyond that, we are going beyond just, treating the diagnosis. We're also like, what's going on with that person, right? What is the stressors in their life? What is their health history? What are the unique situations going on with them? And again, even on a more diagnostic level, sometimes people can have the same condition, but the ways that they got there are a little bit different. And so there's different ways of how we would approach that. So, that's probably, again, we can go a lot deeper, but I think that's the best way to describe it.
And is dietitian a university degree? Like they must be?
Yeah. From that perspective, you'd be doing a 4-year dietetics degree at a university. And I would say that a dietitian, so here, we'll find our graduates working in a lot of different workspaces. Where you're not going to find them is working in a hospital. Right. If your goal was to work in a hospital, then that's where you would see dietitians, right? Mm-hmm. So the dietitians are more aligned with, again, that kind of that medical model, and they're kind of supporting the MDs.
Okay. And then what is the licensing process for this program?
Yeah, so it's not, so basically you're doing the program, you're getting a diploma in applied holistic nutrition, and then you're receiving your designation as a certified nutritional practitioner, CNP, which is kind of the gold standard in holistic nutrition. So if you did nothing else, you can work as a holistic nutritionist. So basically completing the program, you're getting your diploma, you're getting your certification, you can work as a holistic nutritionist. Now, if graduates want to work, say, in the US or they want to work internationally, there's some additional steps that you can do to turn that designation into what you need to work internationally. But there's really nothing else that you need to do after this program in terms of licensing. There's no like board exam you need to do or anything like that. Everything you learn in this program is enough to get what you need to start working.
Great. Next question. Can you provide some examples of companies where students do their co-op placements?
Yeah, so I mentioned CamPrev. There's another local to me in BC, but they're all over Canada at this point. Living Alchemy, another supplement company. I would say it's less like big companies, and it's going to be more in the local area. So like, for instance, where I am in Vancouver, there's different health food store chains and different supplement companies here that our graduates work with, and same within Ontario. But a lot of times, especially if it's going to be those multidisciplinary clinics, it's going to be those individual clinics and things like that. But any of the big supplement brands, thinking in Canada, CamPrev, Vega, Iron Vegan, Herbaland. There's a lot. And then of course, if you're thinking about like Whole Foods or I forget the chain in Ontario. But yeah, there's quite a few.
And can this course serve as a platform if someone wants to study medicine in Canada?
Not really, in terms of depends what you mean by, I think that this is a great foundation for someone wanting to practice medicine, but it's not going to launch you in terms of getting you credits at a university level towards medical school or anything like that, because they are separate disciplines. However, we have medical doctors that have been trained out of country, or they're medical doctors here in Canada, and they'll take this program to round out their knowledge because they realize they have a gap in not understanding nutrition at the level that's necessary these days. But the program will not apply to anything at a university level.
There's a few questions about the fee structure. You didn't mention the fees.
Yeah. Sure. So the tuition is $6,600 in Canadian dollars for both the live online and for the self-paced. And then at the time of registration, there's a registration fee. For the live, that's $450. And for the self-paced is $250. So if we're just kind of rounding up to nice even numbers, let's just call it $7,000 is about the investment into this program. And then there are different options in terms of paying it all up front as a lump sum, doing it in installment options where there would be a small additional fee of about $300 to do in installments over the year, or do it on a per course basis.
Plus, I will be talking about financial assistance to help pay for your training, which I'll talk after we finish all the questions. Someone's saying, I don't want to open my business, but I want to work for a company. Is that possible after the program?
It is, yeah. And I would say then you can strategically use the work experience component too, right? So if you know that kind of going in, then when you meet with one of our work experience advisors, then you can look at specific companies that we have relationships with, or if you have an understanding of what type of work you want to do, then we can align you with someone, and hopefully that can help. If it doesn't land to a direct job, it'll at least build your resume in the type of work that you're looking to do, so that you're more marketable to companies that you're applying for. But it's 100 hours that's required to get your diploma. A lot of students will go above and beyond that, and you think it's basically a 100-hour job interview. So if you knock it out of the park, they'll keep you on a lot of times.
Next question. This is actually a good question. Will there be a course on autism, ADD, or ADHD?
It's not a specific course called that, but it is kind of like sprinkled throughout. Absolutely, because that is something that is affecting. So for instance, there is a course called Nutrition Through the Lifespan, where we are learning about everything from like prenatal all the way to, pre and postmenopausal to like old age for men and women. And so in that kind of childhood, adolescent stage, covering everything from like allergies to, things like autism, ADHD. So that's covered in that course. When we get into some of those more applied courses like symptomatology, definitely been talking about like how would we address or look at different mental health conditions, what vitamins and minerals or deficiencies in the vitamins and minerals contribute to some of these things. So it's definitely a big like a growing topic too. And so there won't be a course called autism and ADHD, but it is certainly covered within the scope of the program.
And is placement assistance provided?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have a team, Julia, who Shobana knows, and some other members of the IHN team. That's primarily what they do, is they foster and build those relationships in the communities. Obviously, that started in the Vancouver and Toronto areas, but now that we are international and we have students all over the country and outside the country at this point with our online options, they're able to set up opportunities literally globally. We have a couple students right now that are working at a retreat center in Nicaragua. So there's lots of opportunities, and there's both remote opportunities and in-person opportunities. And so, like I said, they put together a bunch of opportunities that will get emailed out to students on a regular basis. So it might be something as simple as it hits your email box and you're like, wow, that sounds perfect for me. And you just go through the steps of applying for it. Or it can be a little bit more collaborative. If you have a specific idea for yourself, then you can meet with someone like Julia or someone else on our team and kind of, they can work with you to help set something up.
And next question, are there career supports for starting a business?
Yeah, I mean, those two courses I mentioned, professional practice and professional skills development. That is over 60 hours, about 60 hours of business, right? So learning a little bits of pieces for entrepreneurship, as well as making yourself as a marketable employee, to just rounding out your skills in the business component. So and then there are alumni services that are available too for an extra fee. So students that, for instance, want to go maybe more the entrepreneurial route, we do have alumni consulting services that can kind of like accelerate that process, just so that you're not out there trying to figure it out on your own. You can work with someone who's been in the industry a while, and they can kind of help steer you away from certain things and make sure that you're successful.
And in regards to US, what is the criteria to work there?
Yeah, I mean, that's we can always, at the end of this presentation too, Shobana, we can always share my contact information, because stuff I can always go one-on-one with people a little bit deeper. But and the only reason I say that is just because with the states, it depends on the state. It's not like so how someone works in California is going to look different than someone working in Colorado. So
that makes sense.
The short answer is there's an organization called the NANP, N as in Nancy, NANP. They recognize our CNP designation as the equivalent in the US. So that's kind of like their association for holistic nutritionists. So the short answer is, yes, you can work in the US. It becomes a little bit more nuanced in what is it you want to do and in what state are you working in.
Okay. Next question. What are some job titles that you can share?
Yeah. Holistic nutritionist, obviously, probably the most common one. Health educator. I mean, I'm drawing a blank just because it's, holistic nutritionist is obviously is going to be the most common, especially if someone's working in more of a clinical or a disciplinary setting. If they're working within a company, I mean, that can be literally any title, because even someone that is working more in like marketing or sales, they may require you have this background, but your title might be, territory manager, or it might be, product service specialist. Like, it could be any title, right? So, yeah, it's kind of hard for me to give a full list.
Yeah. Is co-op paid?
It can be. It's going to be dependent on the opportunity. All of them have some sort of, at least like some sort of like perk or trade. It depends. So in the example I gave of like working with a naturopath in a clinic, the exchange is more the mentorship, right? So you're exchanging for the experience and the direct mentorship, and so you wouldn't be paid like an hourly wage. Mm-hmm. But if you're doing a co-op where you are contributing to, say, intellectual knowledge, you're helping develop a course program, or you're helping do research for a book or an educational program, or you're helping with the development of a product, then those are usually paid scenarios.
Yeah. So my client did help with one of the instructors develop a product. She wasn't paid, but it was great experience because she had a molecular biology background. So she had a lot of lab experience. So she was helping the instructor develop a new product.
Yeah, and a lot of times the exchange is not even just within the work component, but sometimes they'll at the completion of their hours, their exchange is that person will put in additional hours of coaching and mentorship with that individual, which is worth,
Exactly. And the experience, you get that hands-on experience, right?
Totally.
Yeah. And last question, what does holistic mean?
Yeah, great. So kind of like when I was describing the difference between a holistic nutritionist and a dietitian, is holistic is looking at, in this case, the whole person. Right. And so, what makes it holistic? So if I was just saying I'm a nutritionist, then a nutritionist means that I'm looking at, okay, carbs, protein, fat, right? I'm just looking at the nutrition. Okay, you should eat this amount of protein and this amount of carbs and this amount of fat. Holistic, I'm looking at the whole thing, which means I'm first looking at the whole person. So what are they eating? But I'm also looking at, again, stresses in their life, environmental factors. In the program, we're learning, like in a course like Nutrition in the Environment, we're learning about, pesticides, chemicals, even things like in our household, like cleaning products, skincare products that can have an effect on our health. So it's literally looking at everything is the easiest way to describe it.
So great. Thank you for the questions. I'm just going to do a short presentation on financial assistance to help you pay for the training. Jason's still going to be here because he's going to be talking about a special topic on holistic strategies for stress resiliency. So please stick around. He will be talking about that, and he'll be still here to answer any other questions you might have about the program and the career. So I'm just going to share my screen. My presentation is very short. It's just about financial assistance to help you pay for your training. So my program is called Accelerating Career Advancement Program at Achēv. Achēv is a nonprofit organization. We're funded through the Government of Canada's Foreign Credential Recognitions Program, and we are in partnership with Meridian Credit Union. So the objectives of our program is to facilitate the integration of internationally trained individuals into the Canadian labor market, support the process related to foreign credential assessment and recognition, facilitate the accessibility of a loan to internationally trained individuals, and monitor the repayment of the loan. And we provide one-on-one career counseling over the lifetime of the program and the loan period. So as I mentioned throughout the presentation, I did have a client who went through this program, graduated. She used the educational loan to help her complete the program, and she's working. She's self-employed. She's working with a holistic organization, and she's also doing research and creating her own creams on her own as well. So who is eligible for our program? Anyone who's an internationally trained individual. All this means is you have education outside of Canada. So it could be high school, college, university, bachelor's, master's, PhD, doesn't really matter. As long as you have education outside of Canada, you qualify for the educational loan. And you must have residency status in Canada. So permanent resident, Canadian citizen, or conventional refugee. So the main two criteria is you have education outside of Canada and you have residency status in Canada and you reside in Ontario. for the educational loan. So you're seeking to have your credentials assessed in Canada, or in this situation, you're undertaking an alternative career to start a new career path in an alternative career. So now we'll talk about the loan program. So we are partnered with Meridian Credit Union. That is a financial institution that we use. And you can receive a loan up to a maximum of $30,000. In this situation, you might only need $7,000, but the maximum is $30,000. The interest rate right now is the best interest rate out there that you'll ever get. And it's the lowest we've ever had. It is 5.5%. Previously, it was at 5.75. Prior to that, it was at 6.9, and prior to that, it was at 9.5. So this is the lowest it's been in a very long time. No credit history is required. So you could be a new immigrant to Canada. For example, I've assisted individuals who've been in Canada for like 2 months and helped them get a loan, but they will do a credit check, just so you know. So they will do a credit check, but no credit history is required if you are a new immigrant to Canada. And repayment terms is a minimum of 1 year to a maximum of 5 years, depending on how much you borrow. So in this situation, if you only need $7,000, you have 2 years to pay it off. And I will show you an example of how the repayment will work in the next slide. And I just have to stress, it is an educational loan. So repayment does start after 30 days. So for example, if you apply for the loan, you get approved for the $7,000, you get the money on August 1st, September 1st, you would have to start paying that back on a regular basis. So there has to be some form of income to show that you can do the monthly payments. So you're either employed part-time or full-time, or self-employed, or you have a co-signer who is employed and has good credit, who's willing to co-sign on your behalf. There have been situations where individuals on Ontario Works have been approved. In those situations, they had Ontario Works plus child tax benefits. So their income was maybe around $2,000 a month with their Ontario Works and child tax benefits. In that situation, they were approved for an educational loan. So it all depends on your situation, and it's all individualized and one-on-one. The last thing we want is to put you into more debt. So we want you to be able to afford this educational loan when we submit the loan application to Meridian Credit Union. And then you'll get continued support from myself. So once you graduate from the program, I'm here to help you find a job and or start a new career, or even get self-employed if that's what you're pursuing. So these are the eligible expenses: qualification assessment fees, association and examination fees, tuition, books and materials, short-term bridging program, travel expenses, living expenses, and a new career path and an alternative career. So all of this can be covered under the educational loan, up to a maximum of $30,000. So the two documents that are required for the bank is a learning plan that breaks down the fees for tuition, books, administration fees, and laptop or any other fees that you might require. And then a loan assessment that has to do with your income, your household income, and then any other expenses that you might have, such as rent or mortgage, Visa card, MasterCard, line of credit. If you have car payments, maybe you have OSAP payments, all of that is included in the loan assessment. And we submit it to Meridian Credit Union that is closest to your home. So these are the documents that are required for the bank, not for me because they're personal documents, but for the bank. So your social insurance number, valid ID, $1 to open up a bank account, because now if you get approved, the money will now be deposited into this new bank account, and you will use that to pay for your fees. And then on a monthly basis, you'll pay it back. Address verification. Again, you have to reside in Ontario for our program. Notice of assessment. So if you've been living in Canada more than a year, you're supposed to be doing your taxes. So you have to have your notice of assessment. If you've been living in Canada less than a year, you may not have done your taxes yet, and that's not a problem. So you don't need to provide that. Bank statements, at least 3 months of bank statements. Your most recent Visa card, MasterCard, line of credit, all those statements need to be provided. And if you are employed, a letter of employment plus 2 recent pay stubs. If you're not employed, your co-signer would need to provide a letter of employment plus 2 recent pay stub. If, for example, you're self-employed doing Uber or Lyft or anything like that, you would have to provide all those documents as well. And you should have been doing it for at least 2 to 3 years, just to show that you had stable income on Uber, for example. And now I'll go to Meridian Credit Union's website. I'm just going to stop sharing and share again, just to show you how the repayment will work, just so you have an understanding of that. So this is their website. I just put in $7,000 as the fees. Interest rate is fixed at 5.5%, and you have 2 months to pay this off. So for a $7,000 loan, your monthly payments will be $308.67 every month for 2 years, and the total interest is only $408. It is an open loan. You could pay it off at any time. There's no penalty, and you will save on the interest. But if you can't afford to put in a lump sum or put in extra money at the end of the month, then your monthly payments will be $308.67 every month for 2 years. That's for a $7,000 loan. If you want a little bit more, like laptop or transportation fees, we could ask for $10,000, and now you have 3 years to pay it off. So your monthly payments is a little bit less. It's $301.96 every month for 3 years, but your interest is a bit more. So for $10,000, your interest is $871. Again, it's still an open loan. You can pay it off at any time. There's no penalty, and you will save on the interest. This is the best interest rate out there. If you were going to go to a bank, it will always be prime plus 2% or prime plus 6%, whatever it might be. And if you're putting it on your credit card, it's going to be really high, 19% plus interest rate. So if you do qualify for this program, this is the best option available for you, just because you can do it over monthly payments over 2 years if you're asking for the $7,000. I'll just show you $7,000 again. So $308.67 every month for 2 years, and the total interest is $408. And again, it is an open loan, and you can pay it off at any time. I'm just going to stop sharing and share again. So this is a client testimonial. So again, the individual, her name is Takdiz Miriam. She completed the program. She graduated. She started her own business, House of Shifa. She's working as a consultant in a holistic food store, and she's doing some microbiology, creating her own creams and stuff like that. So she was from a microbiology background. She had a master's from Pakistan, came to Canada, was looking after her children. Then she's like, you know what, I don't know what to do. I want to start a new career. And she pursued this path. And she's still working, and she's still a client of mine. We still keep in touch. Recently, she received an award at Achēv for being an entrepreneur, and she came for that. She was the only client that received this award. So it was a great program. It helped her in so many ways. And if you are interested in the educational loan, these are the 3 documents that I require: your resume, your residency status in Canada, and your education outside of Canada. And you can send that to me, and you can take a screenshot or picture of this if you want, but I'll add my email address in the chat. You can send it to me, and then we can start the process, because the training does start in September, and the bank does need 10 business days to process a loan application. So the sooner you get in touch with me, the better it is, so you can get the fees in time to pay for your education. So I'm just going to stop sharing. That's it for my presentation. And again, if there's any questions, I will go through the Q&A. So the tuition is $7,000, not $17. Okay. So loan versus sports recognition program. Please, could you repeat the exact name of the government program? So I don't know what the sport recognition program you're talking about. It's called the Accelerating Career Advancement Program at Achēv. Oh, it's not $17,000, it's $7,000. So the educational eligibility for the program is just a high school diploma. I'll just type that in. Are there any grants available through the institution, like bursaries or anything?
Yeah, through the institution, not at this time.
No. Does that mean the interest rate will not change? No, it is a fixed interest rate of 5.5%. It will not change throughout the terms. Yeah, it'll stay constant. And your monthly payments will stay the same unless you want to add more to it. It's fine. Can someone use Better Jobs Ontario for this program? So I don't work for Better Jobs Ontario. That's a completely different program and different department, but I'm not sure if, Jason, if you're familiar with that.
I believe that we have had a couple students come through Better Jobs. I don't know enough about who qualifies and things like that, but it's something to look into. Right.
So you might have to contact that department to get more information on whether this program is qualified for Better Jobs Ontario and whether you qualify for Better Jobs Ontario as well. Yeah. All right, Jason, I'm going to give it back over to you so you can talk about your special topic.
Okay, great. Yeah. So we'll do, and this is just kind of a little bit of a snapshot to give you a little bit of a sneak peek of maybe some of the type of stuff that, whoops, wrong one. Just give you a little bit of a sneak peek as to the type of stuff that you might learn, and then hopefully that you walk away today with something that you can implement for yourself. There we go. We can see that okay?
Yes, we can.
Okay, so holistic strategies for stress resiliency. And as I mentioned at the top, a lot of this I share when I teach sports nutrition, but it applies to everybody. And the reason we talk about it in sports nutrition is because, athletes, the amount of training and the physical stress that they're under. But there's a lot of different reasons why we might be under stress, but stress is kind of received in the body the same, whether that is from a perceived stress where it's coming, mental and emotional, or whether that is real physical exertion, which is a stress, to pollution and other things that are creating stress on our body. And as someone asked about the meaning of holistic earlier, it's taking into account all of these things, not just the physical, but the emotional, the mental, as well as not just the foods, but all of the other things in our life that are contributing. So obviously I couldn't talk about tools for resiliency without talking a little bit about nutrition. So, vitamins and minerals obviously being a key component. When we're talking about nutrition from a holistic perspective, we are going above and beyond just carbohydrates, fats, and protein. A lot of those are important, don't get me wrong, but a lot of it is at the micronutrition, right? Are we actually getting nutrient-dense food? And so we have to be focused on things like vitamins, because those are cofactors that help a lot of different things in the body take place. And vitamins get depleted during high periods of stress. And a lot of these vitamins are also responsible for how our body deals with stress and responds to stress. So it's important that we are consuming these things regularly. And I kind of put, my top three there: vitamin D, which if you're looking from food sources, the yolk of an egg, or, some nice fatty fish like salmon. But most people, in Ontario, you might get a little bit more sun than we do out here in BC, but definitely, supplementation with vitamin D in the winter months when it's really dark, because obviously our primary source of vitamin D is sunlight on the skin. So vitamin D, vitamin C, one of the first things that gets, often depleted when we're under periods of high stress. And vitamin C is responsible for, again, a lot of things, too many of them for me to name in a short presentation like this. But one of the things that people don't realize is, the production of collagen is really dependent on vitamin C. And so when we're thinking about, the quality of our skin, and a lot of people are out, buying collagen supplements and things like that because, reduce fine lines and wrinkles and all of these things. But vitamin C is an important part of that. And for our body to actually build collagen, we need vitamin C. And then vitamin B, should say vitamin Bs, plural. I would rarely recommend somebody to just focus on one vitamin B, like one B vitamin. If they were going to supplement, I would say, take a B complex supplement. But just for a quick little scientific background, B5 and B6 are really important in terms of how we manage stress in the body. So as it relates to cortisol and other things like that. And so B vitamins, again, are something that gets depleted very quickly when we are under periods of high stress, whether that be mental stress or physical stress. And so B vitamins in food, we can think about that as like whole grains. If you're a meat eater, then getting, a lot of B vitamins, you can get that from meat as well. And then minerals. Minerals are important. They literally kind of make up our body. So like our bones and our tissue, and they regulate metabolism. They regulate our hormones. And I kind of mentioned the top three here being magnesium, which Probably about 80% of the adult population is deficient in magnesium. There's a lot of reasons for that, but one of the reasons is sometimes just our food supply, is not as rich in vitamins and minerals as it used to be. And so we need to be focused a little bit more on nutrient-dense foods or supplementing in some cases. Calcium, I think we all know the importance of calcium in terms of bone integrity, especially as we're aging. And then selenium, which some people might not be as familiar with, but that regulates hormones and has a big impact on things like our thyroid health, which thyroid regulates our metabolism and things like that. So for all of these, again, who needs them? Everybody. I kind of put an extra priority on someone who is active, because if you're in the gym or you're out hiking or you have a physically demanding job, that physical demand will often, deplete some of these things even quicker. So phytochemicals are, kind of a sub category of micronutrients. These are chemicals that are uniquely found in plants, and they're very important in terms of helping the body overcome stress. And so there's hundreds of phytochemicals in different, fruits and vegetables, carotenoids, flavonoids. You may have heard of these terms. They found in things like berries, for instance, or, beta carotene that is found in something like sweet potato and carrots. And so I always kind of recommend to people, really focus on colors. You don't have to focus on these terms per se, but is there variety in the colors of foods that you're eating, right? If I'm building a plate, do I have some green vegetables, maybe some orange, maybe some yellows, some reds, right? So, the pigmentation and the color of the food tells you that there's these different phytochemicals. And so I've kind of put the top here, sulforaphane, which is found in broccoli, and it's actually something that they've found to be really effective at preventing things like cancer. And in something like broccoli sprouts, that goes up by even 50 to 100 times. So if sprouts is something that you can grow at home. They do sell it in the grocery stores, but having more of those cruciferous vegetables like broccoli or broccoli sprouts can be really protective from things like cancer. And so a brief introduction to antioxidants. So when we have stress on the body, when we're talking at a physiological level, stress means free radicals, which means oxidative stress, which can come from everything from pollution to, smoking to, pesticides to chemicals to just things in our environment or in our food. And obviously, again, that physical stress can lead to that. If I'm working out really intensely, or I have a really physically demanding job and I'm not taking in proper nutrition, my body is creating a lot of oxidative stress. And therefore, I require antioxidants to help combat that. And so that's where, again, those plant foods come into play. And so focusing on things like berries, right? Your raspberries, blueberries, blackberries, strawberries, cruciferous vegetables. Cruciferous is kind of a family of vegetables that includes broccoli and kale and Brussels sprouts. Dark chocolate. I'm sure a lot of you might be happy to hear that chocolate, dark chocolate specifically though, is good, it's helpful, and it is protective. So you can mix a little bit of that in there as well. And just to share something that I found interesting, they looked at, there's something called the ORAC scale, which is kind of the potency of antioxidant in certain foods, which, again, for the purpose of this conversation, just think of antioxidant as helping my body deal with stress or any sort of assault on the body from, like I said, chemicals or stressors. And so it's really interesting when you look at this list, because I know when I first saw it for the first time, what really jumped out at me is, some of those first few, cloves, cinnamon, oregano, turmeric, right? They're spices, which is very easy for us to incorporate. So even just adding some of these things into our food can be really protective and really medicinal. So it doesn't have to be, just about, I gotta eat all of these crazy different fruits and vegetables. I would certainly encourage you to have more variety in your diet, but even just using some more spices, or having something like a sweet potato and putting a bit of cinnamon on it, or using oregano or turmeric in your cooking. So yeah, I found that interesting, because you look at even something like acai berry, which for a while there it was, acai was like the big thing. Acai, it's like this health food, and it is, but look at how many things are before it that are even more accessible in terms of just adding spices to our food. So these are just a few stats, and I believe these stats actually came before COVID. So I imagine these stats are probably even, even more eye-opening, with everything that we've dealt with as a society in the last little bit. But I mean, the moral of the story is that a lot of us are under a lot of stress for a variety of reasons. And, again, the body cannot separate physical stress from mental stress and emotional stress. And it also can't perceive the difference between a stress that is happening right now in front of me, or if I'm ruminating about problems, right? If I'm stressed out about finances and constantly ruminating on it, that's the same as if I'm dealing with something right here in the moment, right? So, again, that's a little bit of a bigger conversation, but we're all under stress. And so my goal for today is, what are some things that we can do to help take care of ourselves? Because stress is a part of life. And, I don't have any delusions that we're going to just eliminate stress, but how can we support ourselves? And why it's important to support ourselves, because some symptoms of chronic stress, and as you go down the list, you've probably experienced some of these yourself. I know I have at different times in my life, experienced, almost the whole list, so things like, decrease in body weight, insomnia, loss of appetite, inability to relax, right? Feeling like you're always kind of on edge, mood swings, maybe one day I'm happy, next day I'm, full of anxiety or sad, or, just finding that your heart rate is a little bit quicker, poor immune response, right? So constantly getting sick or getting different types of infections. A lot of times that lowered immune system function is because the body is under a lot of stress. And so the immune system can't operate to its full capacity. And so I've put together, again, in the context of, holistic, and give you a little snapshot of some of the things that maybe go beyond just food, for that holistic perspective. Here are 7 things that we can look at. So heat exposure. So things like saunas, which are very beneficial for our health, help improve our circulation, have been shown to reduce the stress. Also really great detoxifier for the body. We have a lot of, we have our lymphatic system. We have obviously, our digestive system, right? We excrete toxins and waste through our bowels. But another big way that we detox is through our skin and through sweat. And so being able to get into some heat exposure to detoxify and sweat out some of those toxins can be really nourishing. And also, it's a particular kind of stress on the body that actually is helpful to the body to kind of go through this stress and be able to respond to stress. And so, there's been a lot of interesting things about saunas lately in terms of how it's neuroprotective as well. How, 3 sessions of sauna a week, how that drastically reduces like all-cause mortality by some pretty big numbers, that it decreases the risk of dementia and Alzheimer's by, I don't have the exact number, but it's like, it's kind of crazy how high, like we're talking like 50-60% reduction in the possibility, right? So heat exposure, that's one way. The opposite of heat, cold exposure, right? We can use cold exposure to put a different kind of stress on the body that actually what it does is it raises levels of, dopamine and gives us kind of that feel good hormones, as well as our focus. It helps reduce inflammation in the body. One of the things of chronic stress is increased inflammation in the body. So it helps reduce that, can increase our mood and just make us feel a little bit more relaxed and present and focused. And those effects of like even just hopping into a cold shower for 5 minutes in the morning, there could be a noticeable impact for up to 4 hours of, kind of similar to having like a cup of coffee. We're just feeling that like that focus and that energy, and also helps reduce something like cortisol, which is a stress hormone that is not a bad hormone, but under periods of chronic stress, it gets elevated. And if it stays elevated for too long, then that's where we start to run into those issues with our immune system and, some of these other chronic diseases that can start to show up. So it says here most benefits, so 12 minutes total time a week. So it doesn't have to be very long, right? So that could be, if you're near a body of water, being able to, hop in the ocean or hop in the lake for a few minutes, or at home, cold shower, cold bath. It's a little bit shocking to the system at first if you're not used to it, but definitely some benefits there. Sleep, probably one of the biggest ones. We need sleep in order for the body to do everything from, detoxification to regulating our hormones to, it's the rest and repair time. And if we're negating or we're not getting the proper amount of sleep, then that can have an impact on everything from our mood to our immune system to our, being more prone to anxiety and stress and things like that. So it's important. And, my hope for you, if there's one takeaway from today, is something in the sleep department, right? Something that you can do to add to your, what we call sleep hygiene. And so, some things and factors to consider, am I sleeping in a dark room, right? So am I taking care of light, having low lights at night, having a comfortable pillow, proper sleep surface, even the temperature. If it's too hot, that's going to disturb our sleep, right? Maybe not exercising too late in the evening, because that can create, too much energy in the body that we're not then going to be able to fall asleep. And light exposure, which I'm going to talk about on the next slide. Light exposure in the morning kind of sets our, what we call our circadian rhythm. And we're meant to kind of have this period of, in the morning, we feel the most energized, and we start to, throughout the day, go down until we get, ready for sleep. And a lot of times and this is one way to know if your body is under chronic stress, is that will get flipped upside down, where you'll feel like you're really dragging and really tired in the morning, but you'll catch like a second wind or get a bunch of energy at like 11 p.m. And like you want to do chores around the house, you want to work on a project, or you just can't stop thinking and you can't get to sleep, right? That means that, there's something going on in terms of that stress response in your body. So focusing on sleep and some natural supplements that can support that, magnesium, taking some magnesium before bed kind of helps relax the muscles, relax the body, help induce sleep. L-theanine, you can get that alone, or sometimes you'll see that in different sleep supplements, or having something like chamomile tea in the evening after dinner, right? So finding a couple things that you can do to prepare yourself for sleep, rather than just going from a busy day to putting your head on the pillow and expecting to fall asleep, but really kind of working towards sleep, a couple hours before you're actually going to bed, getting off screens, things like that. And so sunlight exposure, if you have the ability, this helps kind of set that circadian rhythm that I was talking about. Is when we get up in the morning, even if it's just stepping out on your porch or poking your head out the window or stepping on your front lawn it only needs to be a couple minutes of just getting that direct sunlight in your eyes. It kind of just sets this cascade of hormones that kind of sets that circadian rhythm of like, okay, my melatonin is shut off, which is, that's supposed to be for later at night. My cortisol starts to rise, which gives me energy. And then it's almost like it sets the timer. Okay, when I've see sunlight, I've set the timer. I'm going to go through kind of this natural rhythm and then kind of be wound down later in the evening. So yeah, only takes literally 30 to 60 seconds, or if it's a cloudy day, maybe going out for a few minutes. And then stimulants, this is always, so many of us love our caffeine and rely on our caffeine. And I'm not here to tell you to get rid of your caffeine. I'm just here to remind you to be mindful that caffeine gives us this false sense of energy. It's not actually producing energy in the body. What it is actually doing is it's blocking something called adenosine from feeling tired. So throughout the day, that circadian rhythm I was explaining, we have, this hormone adenosine, which it accumulates over the day, starts to make us feel a little bit more tired. And that's kind of a natural thing. And then melatonin for when, later in the evening when we're to sleep. So caffeine is kind of blocking that so that we don't feel that. So we have this sense of, we have all this energy, but there's kind of a saying that like caffeine is like stealing the energy from tomorrow, right? So it's not really creating new energy. It's just kind of making you believe that that you're not tired. And then that can make us even more tired if we're continuing to work really hard. So some mindful things to think about a caffeine. Caffeine has about a 6-hour half-life, which means if I was to have a large coffee at noon, and that means at 6 p.m., I still have about a small coffee running through my system, right? So it takes a while for the body to actually eliminate and process and get rid of the caffeine. And so if you're going to have your caffeine, have a cup or two of caffeine in that morning part of the day. But don't be relying on caffeine, at 3 p.m. or 5 p.m., because then when you are trying to go to sleep, you're still having a coffee in your system, right? So that's the first place is to start, is just maybe look at, okay, when am I consuming my caffeine, and being kind of mindful of that. And then, maybe there's making a switch to something like green tea, which instead of coffee, because it has that L-theanine I talked about naturally in green tea, which instead of giving you kind of that jittery effect, you get the stimulation of caffeine, but you don't get the jitters of coffee, because that L-theanine kind of gives you a more leveled focus, more of a relaxed focus. So especially people that struggle with anxiety and things like that, I would maybe suggest making the switch from coffee to green tea, just to see how that feels. And then when we're talking about alcohol, again, just being mindful, if we know that sleep is very, very important, then how we're using alcohol can interrupt our sleep as well. And oftentimes, because we are so stressed out, we're using alcohol as a way to fall asleep, but it's actually interrupting our sleep cycle, because alcohol reduces our REM sleep, and it takes a while for the body to process that and for it to wear off. So we might wake up during the night and we're kind of getting partial sleeps, but we're not really getting into that deep restorative sleep. So, it's maybe keeping it to a drink or two, and kind of cutting off a few hours before you're going to bed. Or if you're, maybe you got a wedding or something you're going to, and you're going to be indulging in a little bit more alcohol than normal, then, focusing on things like hydration, or maybe taking some extra vitamin C, or, something like NAC, that can provide a little bit more support to help your body kind of rebound from that. Meditation and breath work, another big one that I always help clients kind of implement a little bit of this in their life. And a lot of times when we're thinking of meditation, people are thinking I have to sit like the Buddha, and and it's that's not for me, I can't do that. But meditation can be, even a walking meditation. It can be just 5 minutes of sitting somewhere quiet, and even having a guided meditation, but just some sort of space for yourself where you're kind of turning off the go thoughts of the day. It's not just an opinion at this point. It's well researched and well documented that meditation really helps with our brain function. It really helps with anxiety and mood. And it also helps reduce stress in the body. Even just that 5 minutes a day is just kind of a little bit of a reset to give the body to, because we're just constantly under, like I said, the body doesn't know the difference between a real threat and a threat just that we're creating in our own mind because we're worrying and thinking about things. And so just giving that space to lower the heart rate, lower blood pressure, kind of get into what they call that parasympathetic nervous system. Yoga Nidra, you might have heard of that. I mean, you can find YouTube videos where it's literally laying on the floor to a guided meditation. So it's just very restorative and relaxing. There's apps like, Headspace and different apps, or just YouTube videos where, if you've never done meditation before, definitely don't just start trying to sit there with your legs crossed, thinking about in complete silence, thinking about nothing. Start with, maybe a 5-minute guided meditation and kind of take it from there. And if you really wanted to go to that next step, then there's like things like float tanks and things like that. And then breath work, if you find yourself in a bit of a high state of stress, feeling a little anxious, this is a tool that is completely free and that we have access to all the time, is just taking a breath. And I can't see you, but I'll invite you to do this with me. It's something that we call the 5-5-5 breathing technique. And so we're doing an inhale for 5 seconds through the nose, and then we're holding our breath at the top for 5 seconds, and we're exhaling through the mouth for 5 seconds. And just doing that for even 2 or 3 rounds. And I'm going to do that now, and I'll encourage you to join me, and then just take notice of what you feel in your body after doing that. And this is, again, just a tool that literally takes 30 seconds that might be able to just bring a little bit of calm to your day. So usually kind of finding a comfortable position and gently closing the eyes, or even having a soft gaze down, and then inhaling deep through the nose for 5, holding our breath at the top, and exhale through the mouth, really letting all of the air out of the lungs. And we'll do that one more time. Deep breath in through the nose, holding at the top, and exhale through the mouth. And as you reach the bottom of your breath, just letting your breath return to normal. And just even from that, that 30 seconds of a few breaths, just noticing, the difference, the shift in what you feel in your body. And obviously you can do that for an extended period of time, for a few minutes. And, I often, I specialized in sports nutrition as a nutritionist. I worked with a lot of athletes, and that was something that I would even incorporate with them when they've done a really hard training session. And their body is just, their heart rate, their body, everything is amped up. And, after they're done their stretching, even doing a couple minutes of some breath work, just to kind of signal to the body that, like, okay, it's time to relax. In terms of if you're looking for some additional support, supplement-wise, there are two herbs that are considered adaptogens. And adaptogens is a term meaning that they help balance that stress response in the body. So I mentioned that cortisol, right? Cortisol can be too high. This kind of just brings things into balance. So if you're from a physiological standpoint, obviously it can't fix your thoughts, but from a physiological standpoint, it can help balance that stress response. So holy basil, you can have this in a tea. It does come in capsules, but I like to just have that as a tea, and you can find that in any store really at this point in the tea section. Or rhodiola. which kind of helps fight fatigue, enhances that mental function. It can improve sports performance if you are someone that's active. But again, it's an adaptogen that just kind of works on that stress response and helping overcome some of that fatigue. And then nature exposure. Again, this is no longer just like an opinion. This is well-researched, and there's a lot of science that just as little as 15 minutes can help reduce stress, anger, anxiety, depression, sleeplessness, right? So again, it's what are we doing to prioritize our well-being? And, it doesn't have to be, have to have hours in your day to do all of these healthy things, right? If it's a couple minutes of breath and it's maybe taking 15 minutes, if you're close to nature and, you have access to being able to go walk among some trees, great. But even if it's just walking around your neighborhood, going for a little walk around the block, or getting up from your desk at lunch and taking a walk outside, and even just noticing, flowers in the garden, or just kind of looking around. And I would say, do this without listening to music or a podcast, right? Just giving yourself a little bit of a break from kind of stimulation. And it has really calming effects on our nervous system. And I'm sure any of you that have all experienced this at some point, where you've gone on a walk in nature, and you just, the proof is there. It feels good. All right. I think that's what I got, Shobana.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. I hope you learned a lot from this. And this is what they'll be learning in the course as well, right?
Yeah, exactly. This is so the fitness and sports nutrition class, like this is what I gave you, like a half-hour snippet of, a 28-hour course, right? And so, this is just a brief introduction. Obviously, we would get a little bit deeper into the science, and prior coming into something like this, you'd have done human anatomy and biochemistry, and some of these terms I'm using that might be like, oh, I don't know what he's talking about. You would have a good understanding of that.
Exactly. So, so anyone here who's interested in taking this course, it does start in September. Please register as soon as possible. Jason put his email address in the chat. I'll just copy and paste it again. If you do need financial assistance, please do connect with me and I can help you with that as well. I will be sending the recording to everyone here, as well as anyone who registered for this webinar, so you can review it again and just connect with us. And I just wanted to thank Jason for the presentation. It was very informative, as well as your insights into stress management as well. That was very helpful. And to all the participants that attended.
Yeah, thank you, and I appreciate all the questions. And please reach out by email if you have more questions. That's what I'm here for. That's the part that I enjoy, is talking to people about nutrition and about the program. So it's been a pleasure, and thank you, Shobana, for hosting this and for giving people an opportunity.
Yes, thank you, everyone. All right, have a good day. Bye.